Namaste. Psychoanalysis and philosophy, idol science, idol as a crystal. Idol science is a lost science. It has many aspects to it, and one aspect is the aspect of the idol being used as a crystal. Crystal healing is an ancient healing technique, and how an idol can be used as a crystal is an interesting aspect to explore. So let us explore this aspect with our psychoanalysis consultant, Mr. Himanshu Vaidya. Namaste, Mr. Vaidya. Mr. Vaidya, can we start with what are the various aspects of the idol science and where its use as a crystal come in?
Idol science is a holistic system. It has various aspects to it. There is an architectural and artistic aspect to it. There is a social aspect to it of bringing people together on a platform where people can come together and talk about their fortunes and misfortunes. There is a psychotherapy aspect to it for healing the sick to the extent that it can. There is a human potential aspect to it to enhance the limits of human potential and our achievements. And there is a spiritual aspect to it where one can, around the idol and the system that is conceptually created around the idol, which together creates almost a school of spirituality. In that school, one can progress spiritually. There is a mystical aspect to it of the occult side of nature, and there is a energy and programmable side to it, which we call is the crystal side to it. So this crystal side to it also is a very important aspect of the idol. In fact, if you look at the utility of the idol, a substantial part of the idol utility is because of its nature as a crystal. This brings us to the point that across human history, people have looked at different types of materials, some being programmable and some not being programmable, some able to contain energy like a capacitor and then execute it or use it when necessary, and some are not able to do so. So from that standpoint, people have divided materials into two: those which are programmable and can store and release energy, or light, or any entity which can be used. In the sense, we are looking like at an occult capacitor, that this occult capacitor is programmable, can store energies, lights, or any entity that we want, and then release it in a particular way so as to accomplish a task in the world. Now, that aspect is the crystal aspect of materials. Usually, metals and minerals, and especially those which are transparent, have traditionally been used as crystals. Those which are not transparent but still have crystalline form are also used, but they are believed to be more difficult to program than those which are transparent. Now, this brings into focus healing systems like crystal healing or chakra crystal healing, which use crystals for healing or for other purposes. And the use of crystal is very popular not only in the tribal and shamanic societies, but in occult circles, spiritual circles all over the world. And this brings to us the element that the idols can also be used as crystals. So this is a very important aspect of the idol. The use of idol as a crystal, it's a socially programmed, a crystal programmed for social purposes, for mass social action. And based upon what the program is, what is the intensity of it, there is something called the space in which this idol as a crystal can operate effectively. So there is an expanse of the idol, there is an intensity of its working, and there is a specific flavor, a specific intention for which it is programmed. So these three aspects are very important in case of using idol as a crystal: the expanse, the intensity, and the specific intent or the specific competence of the idol. And this is why where powerful idols exist, people try to go into the physical vicinity of it, because there is an expanse beyond which it can't operate. And within that expanse, you can feel intensity in different ways. And obviously, the work that it can accomplish is based on many parameters, most important of which is the readiness of the person who goes there. But that we can take it up later. For the moment, we can suffice to start with that the use of idol as a crystal, as something which is programmable, which holds some entities which can accomplish a task in the world. And most often than not, these entities people refer to as energies. Now, whether that energy is really an energy like electricity or heat, or it is some entity which we just roughly call energy, is for the science of future to reveal to us. But the use of idol as a crystal is no doubt one of the major uses of idol and a very important aspect of idol science, and with great significance to human well-being and society.
As you said, crystals are believed to be mystically programmable. How does this cross over to the realm of idols?
Dividing materials into two, those which are programmable and can hold energy or any entity which can be beneficially used, and then release it as per the program to accomplish a task in the world, that divides the entities into two. So people have found over historical period that minerals and metals have more of the capability to be programmed. So if you look at pranic healing, in pranic healing, there is a separate aspect of it called crystal healing. And then you have a separate science of crystal healing, which does crystal healing without using typical pranic healing techniques. So we look at two kinds of materials. The transparent materials are easy to program or deemed easy to program. The sharper the material, the more focus it is supposed to have. And the more monocrystalline or less crystals there are, and larger the crystals are, the better its programmability is supposed to be. So this appears like a theory, like magic, but the proof of concept is easy to have if one learns pranic healing, and anybody can learn it in 3 to 6 months, and one can experiment with crystals and find out whether it operates or not. And experience of many people has been that it does operate, and therefore there is definitely something as crystal healing. And once we realize the truth of crystal healing, we naturally go to the use of idol as a crystal, and that brings out the various materials which can be used for a crystal, that for an idol. That obviously if we are using idol as a crystal, we need the material of the idol to be such that it is programmable, can store energy, can release energy or whatever entities we want to store and release, and have as large an area of action as possible. And this is where the material, the construction and the consecration of the idol becomes very important. And obviously it involves the person who is consecrating it and how deeply he knows the science behind it. And that's how certain places are believed to be more powerful than others in the spiritual and religious circuit. And whether we can develop new materials which have extraordinarily high capabilities as a crystal is something that we have to explore and find out. This is an area of innovation, but traditionally, uh, transparent crystals were usually used for personal purposes or small idols, whereas for social purposes, more solid materials which can endure for centuries, they were used as crystals. So while these materials were very hard and tough, they did have the characteristics of crystals for the action they were intended to do.
How is this aspect used in traditional societies and in shamanic traditions?
In traditional societies, you always have a few temples or a few places or a few stones which are deemed to be highly loaded with energy or goodness or good power which can help you attain certain goals. It may be psychological health, it may be prosperity, it may be something else. It may just be courage and strength. So whatever that be, in shamanic societies, we typically have uh, stones, idols. Now we also have pictures of not only idols of the type that we know of, but many of the idols are only stones or are related to some animals or some weird entities that we have not seen in this world. And some of them seem to be a combination of human and animal or human and something wild in the forest put together. Some of them are the mythological gods of that particular culture. So idols in these forms are used, but from a strictly material point of view, they do have the capacity of a crystal.
Is there a concept of charging or programming one idol from another?
Yes, there is. And this is very common where, let us say in India, you establish a small temple in some village. Then in many cases, not all cases, but in many cases, they take the idol which is to be installed in the village first to a Shakti Peeth or one of the major centers and get the idol blessed from there, which means energized from there, and then put it into the local village temple. And this is because it is believed that if somebody knows how to do it, you can charge, right? It's like charging a small battery from a large battery. That you can get a small idol charged from a larger idol if one knows how to do it, and then establish that small idol in a small village or for personal temple or something of that sort. So there is definitely this aspect of transfer of occult entities from one to the other idol. Now, what is being transferred is different. In some cases, what is being transferred is only program and energy. In some cases, it is a much higher form of consciousness or spirits. So that is what we are told in the idol science, that this kind of occult transfers do exist.
Oh, that's really interesting to know.
Yeah, I mean, this is something which is extremely mystical. So
Yeah.
from a present standpoint, it can look like magic or superstition. For believers, it will be science of tomorrow. What it is, future empirical studies will tell us. But at present, we are in an area of mysticism, uh, wanting to get into the scientific area. But where we stand is an extremely interesting and inviting point to be.
Of course, I mean, scientifically, as you are saying, it will still be proved maybe at some later date.
Yeah,
But
and
definitely people have found it effective.
true. So there is a cultural empirical acceptance over thousands of years of history Now, the point here is all popular belief is not necessarily true. Equally, all popular belief is not necessarily untrue. So, what we are talking about, under which umbrella it falls, is yet to be seen. But I feel hopeful because in pranic healing and in crystal healing, I have seen many people uh, at a subjective level or in small sample sizes doing experiments scientifically. For example, somebody has blood pressure, you can measure it. You can use crystal healing and also again measure it after 20 minutes and you can see the difference. Now, these sample sizes are small. So these are more like pilots. But there is nothing to prevent us from a larger sample size to do a standard double blind and really prove it. And I hope that we do it soon.
Do you have multi-purpose idols or single-purpose idols?
Both of them. For social purposes, the idols which are kept in most of the temples are general purpose. And in these temples, anybody can go and anybody can benefit from the way the idol is designed. But there are some special purpose idols. For example, in South India, there is an idol which is supposed to enhance femininity. The idol is so programmed and the rituals are so programmed because the idol does not just come alone. There's a whole ecosystem of the idol, which includes the rituals, which includes the recitation of mantra, visualization, diet plan, lifestyle, teaching, learning with the guru, doing some rituals. All of that, it's a complete ecosystem. It's a whole package of which the idol is a very important element. Now, in the south of this country, there is an idol which is to enhance femininity, and therefore males are prevented from going into that temple. Now, that's a very special purpose thing. Similarly, there are some temples which are believed to be for good mental health. We don't serve any other purpose. There are some temples which are essentially for prosperity. There are certain places where idols are kept for removing fear. It's a single purpose thing. That if you are suffering from anxiety spectrum issues, then you go there. And this is very popular belief. Now, whether it is scientifically working or it is just placebo, we are yet to find out. But as a social practice, it's definitely there. So there are both multi-purpose as well as unipurpose, special purpose. And the special purpose can relate to any particular affect like anger, fear, pain, guilt, shame, or happiness, bliss, delight, enthusiasm on the positive side. Or it may relate to a particular purpose like prosperity or social power or something of that sort. So both kinds exist. In case of special purpose idols, there are more do's and don'ts, and there are prohibitions about who can use them and who should not use them. And this is a very scientific question. It's not a question of discrimination.
Now, as we know that idols have a purpose, whether it's a special purpose or they're multi-purpose. So, like, how is idol construction related to its purpose?
The idol construction is related deeply with the purpose, the type of people who are going to use it, the number of years you want the idol to continue, whether the idol is a permanent idol or a consumable idol, and how many people you wish to benefit, what scale you wish to operate. So apart from the environmental issue, the socio-cultural issue, the economic issues, these are some of the very important elements which go into idol construction, which inform the material used in the idol, the form taken by the idol, the aesthetics of the idol, the placement of the idol, and the consecration of the idol.
Does the idol have to be in human or anthropomorphic form, or it can be in any form?
It can be in any form, but 99% of idols actually have an anthropomorphic form, either human form or a god form, which is in some way related to the human form. 1% of idols I have non-human form. Some have animal forms, some have plant forms, some are just stones. They don't have any form of a living person. They are just stones as they are. So idols can have any of the form, but usually they are kept in human anthropomorphic form. And the reason is human psychology and the way our system works, and what form is most compatible for with our system, so that we can get the best of the idol at minimum of effort.
Are the rituals related to the idol related in any way to use as a crystal?
Yes, right from consecration to being near the idol or away from the idol, the way the idol is worshipped, the time spent by people, number of people, the physical expanse in which it operates, all of that is related to the use of the idol as a crystal. And it also involves preparing to go to the idol. Because the more prepared one is, more conscious one is why one is going to the idol, the better the results are.
Do idols used as crystals have to be permanent, or can they be used as consumables?
Both. There are idols used as crystals which are on a permanent basis. You can see it in many temples in India where you have 500-year-old temple, 1000-year-old temple, and so on. And then you have very popular idols which are established in Navratra and Ganesh festival, which are temporary in nature, where after the festival is over and it's supposed to be a spiritual festival, the idols are reverentially flown into the river. So these are idols which are created for a particular period of time, and these are more like for temporal social occasions. But you can have an equally private idol which a person can create under the guidance of a guru and use it for some time and then let it go. And the time the idol may be kept for whatever purpose it is, it may vary from a week to a month to an year before it is finally given up to the nature.
Is there an aspect of spirits or consciousness transfer involved in this context of idols?
Yes, yes. This is one of the most esoteric areas because the energy aspect, you still have an empirical parallel, not empirical parallel, but at least a semi-empirical parallel in what is happening in the area of crystal healing and pranic healing. But this is such an esoteric area that we don't know how to empirically investigate. But in terms of the scriptural knowledge as well as mystical schools, it is there. The transfer of consciousness and the transfer of mystical power through the idol. Now, a very preliminary aspect of it is something that most psychotherapists would, particularly psychoanalytic psychotherapists, would easily be able to empathize with: the subtle transfer from the patient to the therapist in the form of transference and in the form of projective identification. We don't know how the transfer takes place, but definitely thoughts and feelings are transferred in an occult way without being spoken aloud and without any other form of communication we know of. So subtle occult communication is happening in the therapy room every day, right, using channels that we don't know of. Something parallel to that is also happening in the area of idols, that transfer of consciousness, transfer of energy, transfer of something programmable intent, transfer of occult knowledge is happening through idols, as we are told. Now, whether it can be verified or not, we have to wait for verification. But this is what is in the mystical schools, that transfer of consciousness, transfer of psychological entities happens through the idols.
How does this entire science work in terms of its metaphysics?
The metaphysics is very interesting because the metaphysics involves first existence of those good entities in a metaphysical way. Obviously, they are not apparent to our senses. We are not relative. We are not talking about entities which are apparent to our senses. So metaphysically speaking, the first axiom is that entities which are not apparent to our senses, they exist. Second axiom is these entities are good in themselves or can be put to good purpose, good use. Third axiom is that somehow, using certain processes, these good entities, be it energies, lights, or spirits, or forces, or beings, or whatever they are, they can be brought into the crystals and through them put into some use that we think is worthwhile. And this can be done through some systemic process. So this is the metaphysical part of it. And another metaphysical part of it is why would these entities do it? And the metaphysical speculation is that they themselves are in their own evolution, and participating in this process helps them accelerate it. Now, who is going to say what is correct? But the metaphysics is on these lines related to the crystals and related therefore also to the idols and the way they work it. Another metaphysical element is of visualization and mantra and certain recitations and certain occult practices, which are used to put certain things or create certain things when the idol is being used as a crystal. And there the metaphysical element is related to not only to the process, but to the form and the material of the idol. And we can see this complete metaphysical package in execution. Even today we can see it in certain temples where the Sri Chakra is used in the 3D form as an idol. Where the Sri Chakra is created in a 3D form, and then that form and the material is of a particular type, ritual and consecration of a particular type, and the metaphysical understanding is that the form, the ritual, and those suprahuman entities, somehow because of certain processes and human work, sort of load and saturate that Sri Chakra, and then it can be put to good use. So the metaphysics is one of a very benign suprahuman realm.
So in one sense, the feel I get is that something very non-tangible brings very tangible effects. how one doesn't know.
Yeah, and that is the most interesting aspect of it, because there are two ways of looking at it. One is to dismiss it as coincidence and superstition. Second is to explain it with the power of human will, autosuggestion, and placebo. And the third is to really investigate it and find if there is something true to it. And if it is so, then it is nothing less than a world-changing paradigmatic revolution.
True.
Because if this is so, that suprahuman benign entities can be put to good human use, it opens up just endless possibilities of doing good to ourselves and to the world.
So yes, when we talk about using this whole thing of idol and crystals for human benefits, then can idols as crystals be used for psychotherapy?
Definitely so. In fact, uh, in Western psychotherapy, which is today equated with psychotherapy, obviously you can't use crystals, otherwise you lose the license. So that is a different aspect. But if you look at the word psychotherapy, not to mean Western psychotherapy, but to take it in the broad sense of what the word means, any form of psychotherapy, and that if it includes age-old, indigenous, shamanic, and traditional forms of healing, if that is the wide definition given to it, then this has been used for ages. And even today in India, in villages, this is the first go-to for people with psychological problems, going to certain temples with certain idols. Not that they know scientifically what is happening. Today it is loaded with superstition, that's a separate aspect. But traditionally, uh, there was a science which was alive at one point in time. And when that science was alive and had not distorted and degenerated into the situation we have today, use of idol, both as a crystal and in other forms, was a very potent use of this science for psychotherapy, for healing people, and not only for psychotherapy, but on the other end, to realize one's full potential.
So I think psychotherapy word sounds little misleading. I think healing
Yes,
is a
it's a
more,
better word.
better
It's a
word.
better word. Yeah.
Right. Okay. What other uses can this be put to?
Uh, Practically anything that you can think about, because at present we are just infatuated with this idea, and our search for an omnipotent good object is put here. So we are projecting the omnipotence onto idol as a crystal. But obviously every system has its strengths and limitations, so obviously there would be limitations of this system too. However, we don't yet know how to draw these lines. To what use can it be put? To what use it cannot be put? It needs more experimentation. But uh, if you start from a blank canvas with optimism, certain areas are very clear where it can be put to use. One is psychotherapy. Two, self-development and human potential. Uh, Three, uh, we have to find out if we can use it for uh, enhancement of certain material properties. Fourth is to overcome certain economic or karmic problems. And fifth is, can we weaponize it? That will be the difficult use of it if people start weaponizing this thing. And that also is a possibility. And I'm sure that if someone experiments and it succeeds empirically, you will soon have a complete sector of economy developing around it, and you will have venture funds investing in crystal companies.
Right. Okay, we come to our last question. How do you see this evolving in future?
It's a very interesting area to explore. At present, on the borderline of science, where a few subjective experiments have been done, awaiting full scientific investigation. So the first is the empirical research into it. Second, if it gets proven to some extent, then the whole thing opens up of how to create crystals, what materials to use, how to manufacture them, how to make it more powerful. Then the entire science of process comes in. That how to use rituals, mantra, guided visualization, lucid dreaming, normal dreams, and the whole spiritual process involved in idol science for self-knowing and self-transformation, and then putting it to more secular purposes, right? Which is for, we don't know if it can be put to use, for example, in altering certain properties of some materials or seeds, or creating public spaces for public healing. Because if it works, right, then we can actually do healing from a distance, as it is claimed in pranic healing. And if that can be done, then it's almost like just as you have telecom towers, you have healing towers then. Or we have healing spaces where you go and sit or pass through and something happens. So if it comes true, then we are on, I mean, we are in a sort of a land of magic, so to say. But even if that does not come true fully, but even if a part of it is true, we still will have one more tool, even though with its limitations, but yet one more tool in our basket. And I'm sure that tool can do a lot of good. And lastly, the science of the idol will get interest from people, will get researched and will develop if this part of the idol use can be proven, and this is something easy to do. So if we can empirically prove and popularize the use of idol as a crystal, it will draw people into the whole area of idol science. That will do good to everyone in the world.
Thank you, Mr. Vaidya, for this very insightful discussion, and this topic itself. I think it's a very interesting topic.
Yeah.
Do write to us at hvindia@gmail.com. Namaste.
Namaste.